Okay, folks, it looks like we've got the board members in. I would ask everyone to please mute your laptop or your computer. Everyone in this meeting, please mute. Okay. We have a quorum and we will move on to item B, recognition of students.
All right. Well, good evening. And tonight we have a number of students that we're going to recognize for the Superintendent Students Awards, our CABE Awards, as well as our top 5. So at this time, I would welcome our Principal Coella to introduce our 5th grade booth-free Superintendent Award winner.
Hi, everyone. I am so honored to present the award, this award to our booth-free and Burnham schools recipients. Booth-free school. Brianna Johnson. We'll give a wave. Go ahead, give a wave. Good. Brianna Johnson is the shining star at booth-free school. She is a quiet leader whose positive attitude and steady determination inspire those around her. Brianna is a great friend to her classmates and is always willing to lend a helping hand. She gives her best effort and her determination to learning is exemplary. Brianna serves as a role model for not only her peers in her 5th grade class, but also for our younger students at Booth Free School. Congratulations, Brianna. So proud of you. Do you have your plaque? Do you have, show it. Here we go. Wonderful. So proud of you. Okay, our second recipient is from Burnham School. Natalie Orletsky is an outstanding student at Burnham School. She exemplifies leadership and demonstrates kindness and creativity. Natalie volunteers for student council and assists in fundraising for our Kindness Campus campaign. She is always volunteering to help fellow classmates. She is a strong student and an avid reader. She is a contributing member of our Invention Convention and Chappaqua Soccer. Natalie values her friends, family, and nature, as well as her chickens and dogs. We commend Natalie for her determination and positive citizenship. Congratulations, Natalie. So proud of you. Show your plaque. Do you have your plaque? Awesome. Excellent job.
Congratulations. At this time, can I introduce Principal Judd to share Washington Primary Superintendent Award winner.
Good evening, everyone, and congratulations to all the recipients tonight. Washington Primary School is very proud to honor Mackenzie Callahan, a 5th grade student. Mackenzie, can you just get, there you are, great. Mackenzie is a self-motivated individual and sets high standards for herself. She is a kind and caring friend who can always be depended on. She continually looks for opportunities to challenge herself and consistently goes above and beyond in her schoolwork. She participates in karate, Tang Soo Do, and recently received her black belt. Mackenzie volunteers and works with friends to revitalize the Bantam Wall. She plays basketball and softball. And most recently, she is raising money to support a friend who is going through cancer treatments. She is going to bravely show her support by shaving her head this weekend. So she really, truly is a good friend. So congratulations, Mackenzie. You're going to receive your award tomorrow.
At this time. At this time, I would like to introduce Principal Gallo to share the Superintendent Award winners for Chippewa School.
My pleasure. Our first award winner is Catherine Hodge. I saw her here before. Okay, I'm going to talk about her anyway. Catherine is one of our seniors. She does a wonderful job both in the classroom and as a dancer. She did her senior project on her dreams of becoming a Rockette and the hard work that she has put into that dream. I'm very proud of Catherine, and I hope that all of you are too. Our next award winner is Elena Gill.
Mom's here on her
Hi
behalf.
there. Hi there, Catherine Hodge. How you doing? I'm sorry. I tried to say nice things about you. I hope you heard them.
I was here.
I thought you were. I thought I saw you before. Do you want me to say it all over again? I'm kidding. I know you don't want me to do that. Catherine is also a very humble young lady. So thank you very much and congratulations, Catherine. Beautiful. Our next award winner is Elena Gill.
And Elena's actually working, so Mom is accepting on her behalf.
Well, can we highlight Mom instead of me? Because I really don't need to be. Okay. Elena, when I think of Elena, I think of a hardworking young lady. Elena is one that will talk to you about a myriad amount of subjects, and she'll do that with a lot of passion and with a lot of pride. But she also puts a lot of hard work into her schoolwork, and I really admire the student that she has become. Congratulations, Elena Gill.
Yay.
And last but certainly not least, we have Margaret Vincent. Are you here tonight? Still stuck with me. Yay. Okay. When I think of Margaret Vincent, I think of a quiet leader, and that is how her classmates describe her as well. She is an absolutely lovely young lady who enjoys learning and also enjoys putting that in her conversations in a myriad of subjects and in a myriad of ways. I think a very great deal of Margaret, and I know she adds a great deal to our school, and I thank you. Okay, congratulations to the
At this
Chicago.
time, I would like to turn over the CABE Award winners. Ms. Gallo, if you don't mind sharing. We know that CABE is the award for students who are showing leadership in Chippewa Valley School. So without further ado, I'd like you to share a little with the community.
Sydney Vidal is our first winner. Sydney, one of our seniors, is a passionate speaker, a strong advocate, and a person who cares deeply about social issues. I believe those are the reasons why she was chosen for this award, and I am very proud of the person that Sydney is in our school. I enjoy that voice. I will miss that voice, and I'm very, very glad that I get to talk about you tonight. Congratulations, Sydney.
Yay, Sid.
And we also have Billy Cario, who is sitting next to Sydney. I love that. Our two leaders sitting together. As you can see, Billy is on our baseball team, but that is only a small part of what he has contributed to our Chippewa community. Billy is absolutely a quiet leader. He is the type of person who always looks to do the right thing, who is very humble and very gracious. And if I want to know the truth, if I want to know what's actually happening, I talk to someone like Billy, because he will tell you like it is. And I like that about him, and I like him a lot. And just like Sydney, those leadership voices I will miss. I am absolutely happy to honor those voices, and I appreciate the opportunity to celebrate you tonight. Congratulations, Billy and Sydney. From the middle school, we have Alondra Achiega. I know she's there. I saw her name. Sydney wisely says you don't need to show me anymore. There she is. Alondra is also becoming a leader in our middle school. She is a lovely young woman. She is well-spoken. She is kind. And she is the type of person that I can rely upon to stand up for her classmates and to do the right thing. Alondra, you contribute an awful lot to our school community, and I appreciate you for that. Congratulations. Last but certainly not least, from the middle school, we have Nate Connick. Okay, Nate, I'm going to start talking about, there he is, and he has no support whatsoever. That's so sad. There's just nobody behind him. Okay, Nate is a wonderful young man. When he came down to get his picture taken today and to receive his award, he very shyly after we got our picture taken, looked at me and said, "Can I keep this?" I said, "Absolutely, Nate. We're celebrating you. You get to keep that." That's the type of young man that he is. He does good things. He does them with a humility and a grace that is very, very nice. And he doesn't expect to be awarded. He was all set to give that darn award back and give it to someone else. And good for you, Nate. You're a good man. Go ahead. You can hold it up, honey. Congratulations. Aren't I lucky to have such a group of students?
Okay. And at this time, Mrs. Gallo, I think we are all eagerly awaiting the naming of the top 5 for the Chippewa Valley School graduating class of 2021.
Can I get a woot woot? There we go. Okay, for our top 5, what I do to introduce the top 5, because I want to make sure that I represent them in a way in which they are comfortable, is I look at what we call their brag sheet. In that brag sheet, students reflect on a number of topics. They say the type of things that they would want a college to know about them. It's how they organize their thoughts about how they've learned before they start to apply for colleges. So the first person I'd like to talk about tonight is Jacob Wild. And I saw him, there he is. He's so thrilled to be here. There you go, Jake. Okay, so Jake is on our hockey, baseball, and cross country teams. He is one of the future business leaders of America. And he talks about how he admires his dad's business acumen. And I think that has a lot to do with his future as a businessman. He's also a mathlete, and he's in the art club. And I love the way our business folks are also artists. I think that is a wonderful range of ability, and it shows how interesting the people that they are. He illustrated the 2018-19 yearbook cover, and it looked really good. A quote from his brag sheet that I enjoyed is he was talking about participating in a community event on Martin Luther King Day, and he said, "It helped me realize the meaning behind a day off and motivated me to have a positive impact on others and society, something that leaders like Martin Luther King spent their lives trying to achieve." What a nice line. Is it okay if I quote you that in a speech one day?
Yeah.
Why, thank you. I look forward to attending Jake's senior project. We Are Water, a study of water conservation and its importance in the world. Thank you, Jake.
Thanks. Huh?
Next, we have Billy Cario. Not too hard to remember this guy. I just got through talking about some of his other good qualities. And from his sheet, I learned well, I didn't learn it. I know him pretty well. But he is a soccer, hockey, and baseball player. He belongs to 3 honor societies, the National Honor Society, and also the Math and Science Honor Societies. He is a mathlete and a member of the Spartan Club, which is a service organization in our school. He was middle school tutor of the year, and he's very much known to be a help to his classmates by tutoring them, both as part of his honor society obligations and just as a good friend. He also found out either today or yesterday that he took 2nd place in the Congressional Art Show, and as a result, he'll have his photo night exhibited in the office of Representative Johanna Hayes. His quote, when asked about 3 adjectives that others might use to describe him, Billy chose among them the word genuine, stating, "I try to be the most true version of myself that I can be." This was further illustrated at the CIAC Sportsmanship Conference, where he said it felt very fulfilling to see firsthand how our school's good sportsmanship and positive mentality was recognized. Aren't those good things to think about? Thank you, Billy. I enjoyed his senior project, Hello World, an introduction to coding, which was an impressive exploration of his love of this complex topic. And if somebody could try to explain it further to me, I might actually understand what he was talking about. Thank you, Billy.
Thank you.
Next, we have Sam Quigley. Sam is in cross country, both at our school, and he is a frequent runner in Roxbury road races. He belongs to the Model UN, the Political Science Club, the band, especially enjoying the pep band, me too, by the way, Mathletes, and Simply Smiles, another service organization. He's motivated by his interest in world affairs and particularly enjoys when those topics are explored in the classroom. The quote I loved from his brag sheet is, "I'm most proud of finishing my junior year with straight A's and 2 5s on my AP exams. This is because," and this is the reason why I love the quote, "this is because I put hours in, amounting to many days throughout the school year in these classes, and the hard work paid off." What a good reflection for a young man. I look forward to Sam's senior project, 2:59 marathon training. Although I'm sure that when I hear about his running career, it will make me feel like quite a slug. Thank you, Sam. And now I get to introduce your salutatorian, Lily Blinn. There she is. I didn't see you before, sorry. I didn't mean to be so surprised. I knew you were coming. Okay, Lily is a rower at a very highly competitive level, including the U.S. Rowing Youth National Championships in Sarasota, Florida. She'll be there in just a couple of weeks. She belongs to the Mathletes, the Art Club, the Environmental Club, the Period Club, and Orchestra. She says, an academic accomplishment that I am proud of is scoring a 5 on the AP Biology exam, 5 on AP Language, and a 4 on AP Euro during my junior year. AP was a new subject, and I struggled with Euro assessments at first. I love that reflection because Lily is the type of leader and student who likes to persevere and get that to success. That's a wonderful thing. And another quote, she talks about her experience growing up on a farm, and she says, "The farm taught me how you have to find a balance between doing things well and fast." That's an awesome reflection. I really like that, and I think you're going to do just fine, Lily. I'm excited to see your senior project, constructing a treehouse, which sounds unique in and of itself, the fact that she is constructing a treehouse, but it's also a project that will serve to educate the public about sustainable energy. She is a lifelong learner, and I thank you, Lily. You represent us well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to our valedictorian. Unfortunately, he can't be here this evening, but I still want to say nice things about him. His name is Kyle Mykowski. Kyle is a soccer athlete, and he belongs to the Science, Art, and National Honor Societies, the Model UN, Simply Smiles, the Yearbook, and Student Council. He talks about his love of deep discussion, and he loves the act of learning and contributing in the classroom. He's a very competitive student. Obviously, he's the valedictorian. He loves learning, and he is appreciative of his ability to fight through adversity to achieve. He also sees himself as a funny guy, and that was backed up by one of his quotes where he joked that he prefers a college with really good food. I like that one. I'm excited to see Kyle's graphic novel when he presents his senior project. The top 5 represents very talented and very motivated students at Chippewa. Those qualities are qualities that I'd like our younger middle school leaders to keep an eye on as they rise through Chippewa. There are very, very good goals that you can achieve. Thank you.
Well, that is always one of the highlights of the year when we have these presentations, and we're so happy to meet these people, and especially to see the 5th graders coming along, because they're going to be the leaders you're going to be talking about in years to come. And it's really a sensational thing. These young people are amazing. Okay, so I'd like to move on to public comment on agenda items. Is any member of the public here on this Zoom broadcast who would like to comment on an item on tonight's agenda? If so, I can't see everybody. Hold on a second. I've got to change my view here. All right, so if you would please raise your hand if you would like to comment, and I'll try to go through and find you. And I see no one with a hand up. Is there anyone who would like to comment? If without a hand, we'll take a voice vote. If you want to say something, please let us know. I don't hear anyone. So I don't think we have any comments. We'll move on then. Move on to the consent agenda.
We want to excuse any of our students who they may or may not want to stick around.
Yes, at this point in time, all the students who are with us tonight, you're welcome to stay and enjoy the rest of our meeting, or at this point in time, you might have something else you'd like to do. So we will excuse you at this point. We're thrilled to have met you, and good luck. Now we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there anything on this consent agenda that anyone wants to take off the agenda? All right, I have 2 things. I'm sorry, I can't read mine. It didn't print correctly, so hold on a second. I'm going to have to go on here and get it. Give me 1 second here. Thank you. I noticed at the end of the meeting of April 26th, on the action on executive session items at the very end, I think the actual order, if I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the actual order was to approve the approve the amended contract with Sherman and to authorize the chairman to execute it. And this seems to say that it authorizes the chairman to execute it without saying that we specifically approve the the amended agreement with Sherman. So does anyone have any thoughts on that, or if there's no objection, could we just change it to reflect that? Okay. Well, I'll do it without objection. So unless anyone objects, we'll modify that to indicate the motion was made by James Hirschfield, seconded by Jennifer Pody, to approve the amended contract with Sherman and to authorize the chairman of the board to execute the amended contract. Okay, so that takes care of that. I think the other one was on the May 3rd. No, it's not. May 3rd. Yeah, and I'm looking, I think it may be the annual district budget meeting. Okay, yes, it's the very end of those minutes of the annual district budget meeting. It said that the chairman would entertain a motion that the budget meeting be considered adjourned until the following day, Tuesday, May 4, until the polls open in each of the 3-member towns for the purpose of voting the question. The meeting shall then consider it as adjourned following the close of the polls in the 3-member towns. And announcements made of the results of voting the question. And then at the end, it says motion made by Peter Tagley, seconded by Mary Weber, to adjourn the meeting at 7:08 p.m. I don't think that's what the motion was. I think the motion was as stated above, to adjourn the meeting to the following day, Tuesday, May 4, until the polls open in each of the 3-member towns. So I think we need to have that track the motion as it's described that the chairman would entertain. And the purpose of that obviously is to make sure because that's the motion I asked to be made, and the motion was duly made. I just think we need to make sure that our minutes correctly reflect that that's the motion that was made, so there's no issue on the budget having been adopted properly, following proper procedures. Okay, is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. All those abstaining, raise your hand. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. So those items will be adopted as, do we need a motion to adopt them? I think we need a motion to adopt those 2 sets of minutes as amended. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, abstaining, it's unanimous. Those are all adopted. Okay. Update on COVID-19.
Here we go. Well, good evening. Sorry about that. I apologize. I hit the wrong button. Here we go. So today we're going to update on our COVID-19 from last presentation, which, as you know, we always do this to every board meeting, and we just reflect on the health of our community and the health of our schools. And I have to tell you, of all of the facts and figures that we have, this is our running total since we started school on August 31st. The only addition to this chart from our last meeting was 1 student at Chippewa. So that means in a month, we have really seen some healthy conditions in our schools. I am very proud to share that we have 3 weeks strong in which we've had no notifications of COVID-19 infections, and we have not had to quarantine anybody because of their contact with someone with COVID-19. I think that we have a lot to appreciate for this. I know that our families have taken advantage of the vaccinations that are out there. I also appreciate the safe efforts that have been put forth. But I think when I look at all of the factors we have, our students are going into some celebrations in a very healthy condition. That does not mean we get cavalier about COVID. One of the things that we have made a point of is the CDC as well as the governor, and I know we've seen mask restrictions. I appreciate our entire board for still utilizing their masks. This is where we are finishing strong. And I appreciate the fact that we are still asking everyone who comes into our schools to still remain masked up, so that way we can have all of those celebrations and keep things safe and healthy. So we know what becomes low risk, but we make certain that we want to give our students the best experience as they finish up the school year. So again, we do continue to ask people that when they're doing their traveling, please look at the CDC websites. Because even if people are vaccinated, there are still some areas that are still considered dangerous travel. So if you're going internationally, check the CDC sites to make certain you know what are some of those restrictions and cautions. I have to publicly thank New Milford and Newtown, their health departments. Again, they have given us correct information. They have given us advisement. They have looked over every celebration, every piece of note that we have to make certain that we are maximizing safety while we're still celebrating. And it is because of these two health districts that we are able to continue to avail our students. And now we have 12 and older to the vaccinations. Right now it is just Pfizer for ages 12 to 17. We have been able to provide buses to the clinics in New Milford. So I think you called it Jim Hirschfield when he said that is the world's worst field trip. It is, but it is also one of the ones that are keeping us safe. So we are providing that transportation to and from the clinics, again, to make certain that those who'd like to have the opportunity have the opportunity. As far as next year, and I've got a lot of questions, people are still asking now, well then what will happen next year? What will our classes look like? Will we have to have masks? All of that is really dependent. We're still waiting for more guidance from the State Department of Education. But we also know a lot of that determination is going to be based on the availability of the vaccine to those age groups. So I do want to temper people's expectations. Things may look different at Chippewa than they do in our elementary schools when we start the school year. From what we are hearing, the availability of the vaccines for students younger than 12 is not going to be until the end of September. And we are looking for fully vaccinated as we start to look at what are the restrictions and guidelines. So we may start the year looking socially distanced and then figure a way to close space, but Chippewa may be in a different boat. So what I need people to recognize is that it may look a little different depending on the age level, but we certainly want to find ways that we can close some of those distances safely. We recognize it is not the best education to have kids in rows 6 feet apart. You lose the opportunity to have some of these conversations and exchanges. So we're just as eager as families are to see some of these restrictions go away, but we are only going to do that when that is safe. So please know we continue to work with our experts on that. And it is also important that we share, and I will give more information in the update later on this meeting, that our senior graduation will look a little bit more traditional this year than in years past. Again, all of our graduation plans have been reviewed by the departments of health. Again, we know that as we know, the masking laws have changed and what is acceptable. We still have some guidelines we have to follow at our graduation ceremonies. So we're going to find ways that we can both be permissive and safe. And so right now, I'm very proud to say we get to take back and claw back some of those traditions that we've lost, and hopefully it is well received by our communities. So that concludes my COVID update for tonight. Are there any questions that people have?
Mary.
Do you have a statistic of the percentage of Chippewa students that have gotten vaccinated?
The only numbers I have right now, we do not have full disclosure. So I have the numbers from the Department of Health has told me how many have gone through their clinics, but we also know that's not all inclusive. So I recognize that when they're giving me the numbers 2 weeks ago, that was for students ages 16 and 17, and I believe they had 79 go through their clinic specifically, but I do not have the exact numbers at this time. But I do feel, if I was to say to you a subjective statement, based on the amount of families who canceled their vaccination clinic appointments with us, I do feel that we had, I would lowball it and say at least 60% of our students who have availed themselves to the vaccination.
Anyone else? Okay. We will move on to school operation in the time of COVID.
All right. Well, I have to say that we have remarkable leaders for our schools. And I know they're going to present all of the things that their staff members have done, and the principals at each of our schools are not going to share the Herculean effort that they themselves have done. They're not going to share the fact that we have been on phone calls at 10 o'clock at night trying to trace COVID. They're not going to talk about the fact of how many times they had to rearrange schedules, or how many times they had to reassign duties because they were sudden absences, or how many times they themselves had to cover classes to just make it work. But you have to know that as they present today to talk about the operations and things they did in order to make school work, it could not have happened without the leadership of our administrators in this district. And so I'm going to begin with a thank you so much to our building leaders and leaders in this district, because you really did make this happen. So with that, I will start with our elementary principals, Principal Judd and Principal Coelho.
Great. Thank you very much, Megan, for those kind words. I'm going to share the screen, and I think Kathy, you'll start for us, right?
Yes, I will. And thank you, Megan. Thank you for guiding us.
Okay, are you ready?
Yeah, so this is our presentation, Elementary Schools 2020-2021, a transformative year. Go to the next slide. So good evening, everyone. I can't believe we're here, and it's the end of the school, almost the end of the school year, and we made it. We made an entire year in school, and that's amazing. So as we were reflecting on one of the most unique school years for our staff, our students, and families, we are inspired by this quote. Some changes look negative on the surface, but you will soon realize that space is being created in your life for something new to emerge. Although we were emerging from the pandemic, we started this year with much trepidation. This quote brings to our attention that in the midst of change, there is much more hope to be realized. Our year was characterized by three concepts: focus, ebb and flow, and fortitude. Our hope this evening is to share with you how the elementary schools fostered academic and social successes through the lenses of these three concepts.
Developing a common direction and a focus toward success was the framework needed to bring a sense of calmness, safety, and unity among staff, families, and students. Much preparation was required in order to set sail on our journey through COVID. The first and foremost concern was to set a course that addressed the safety and emotional concerns of all. Safety protocols for social distancing, hygiene, and mask wearing were shared with parents and staff and were delivered through predictable routines both in and out of the classroom by individualizing materials, rearranging the school environment, and teaching and reinforcing expectations. The entire school communities rose to the expectations.
To respond to safety guidelines, lunch and recess schedules were designed to support social distancing, cohort separation, as well as encouraging safety, socialization, and physical activity. As safety precautions shifted, shared materials were introduced to include different types of sports balls, jump ropes, hula hoops, horseshoes, and cornhole games. We were very thankful to our parent-teacher organizations for supporting individual playground equipment. However, the most innovative change was with the specialist schedules. We adjusted the schedule to rotate art, music, PE every 4 weeks. This change proved to be beneficial in many ways. Specialist teachers voiced that seeing students every day for 4 weeks supported continuity in their curriculum standards, as well as provided a more in-depth understanding of each student. Through the student's lens, they were able to connect consecutive lessons and complete projects with commitment. We also learned that daily PE was beneficial for all students as exercise was increased for all students.
At the elementary level, we take great pride in fostering social skills. This year was no exception. Knowing that students were coping in different ways with the impact of COVID, perhaps family illnesses, isolation, and more, internal stress and anxiety was to be expected. To support the unpredictable and fragile emotional state, the elementary staff teamed together to increase social learning and self-regulation through mindfulness practices. Students learned how to identify and manage stressful thoughts and feelings and to redirect their energies toward a positive and optimistic mindset. Teachers used videos and daily breathing exercises to help students gain necessary strategies that would calm their minds and bodies. The majority of our students can name more than one breathing strategy and can use them with and without prompting. Here are a few student quotes about their personal concerns and how when they practice mindfulness strategies. So as you can see, some of our students were concerned about masks, about playing with other students from different classes, or being safe. And some of our students now practice mindfulness strategies when they have a hard time, maybe when they're getting ready for a test, when they had a long day at school. So they have a lot of tools this year. To sum this up in one teacher's voice, the mindfulness strategies were helpful tools in problem solving and social conflicts. The strategies empowered students to build confidence and recover from mistakes. It helped them feel safe in the classroom and build community. As our energies moved forward, we learned that we needed to maintain direction and yet flow through the currents of change in order to meet the needs of our staff, students, and families. Being flexible thinkers, practitioners, and collaborators set the tone as we navigated the teaching and learning process.
The most significant adjustment was the dual teaching application of in-person and distance learning. Teachers had to integrate the use of new technologies such as webcams with existing technology to ensure synchronous instruction for all students. Teachers also had to develop a routine for providing weekly plans to distance learning families, as well as prepare materials for weekly pickup. Once these steps were in place, teachers became dual experts. Critical to the success of each learner, teachers assess students using a variety of tools such as the STAR reading and math tests, district benchmark assessments in language arts, math module assessments, and daily observations. These assessment protocols gathered necessary information all throughout the year to allow teachers to meet the needs of our returning students and of the many new students who entered our schools. Gaps were addressed in the classroom through teachers' small group work and with interventionists. As the year progressed, teachers collaborated in every grade level to adjust pacing to identify learning priorities. Although students made strides this year, closing the gap for all students will continue to be a priority at every grade level.
Given the parameters of social distancing, collaborative discourse between students was challenging. Over the course of the year, teachers were able to add in discourse techniques such as turn and talk, and to include collaborative learning activities to increase student-to-student talk and problem solving. Math projects, research reports and presentations, and book clubs are a few of the examples. At each elementary school, events and activities increased throughout the school year. Events like the Invention Convention, Fire Prevention, and the Spartan Club. Outdoor visits from organizations such as Flanders and White Memorial and a master violinist were safely scheduled to support the academic standards.
Other events included virtual experiences such as the Elementary Arts Recognition Ceremony and virtual enrichment opportunities with authors, musicians, parents, and virtual field trips like Mystic Aquarium.
As we all move forward and out of the pandemic, we can say with confidence that our journey began with fears for our students, families, and for one another, but slowly grew into a shared commitment of fortitude, persevering together through a degree of unknown. We'd like to share with you some meaningful reflections from a few of our staff and students.
One of the benefits that have come out of teaching in the pandemic is a renewed focus on the whole child. We have not only focused our attention on regaining academic skills, but also on the whole body and the whole mind of every kid. We are working on, obviously, how to keep ourselves safe. Hand washing, good hygiene, things like that are always good reminders, but a renewed focus on mindfulness, the ability for the students to be resilient and to take challenges and stressors and make the best of what they have. And I see these as skills that are going to benefit us throughout the rest of our lives. It's a good reminder for me as a teacher to take that moment to breathe, and doing the same for the students has been really impactful and beneficial for them.
The pandemic changed me as a student because it's made me more flexible in my schoolwork, because I know nothing's going to be definite and things can always change.
When I think about the pandemic this past year, and I think about how I've learned as a teacher, one of the biggest things I've learned was I had to look for the sparkle in students' eyes. That's how we can tell if they're smiling. We can't see behind their mask. So I always knew if a student had a sparkle, they were having a great day, they were having fun with their friends, they were having fun learning. But if there was a student in need of that sparkle, I had to give them some extra TLC, check in with them, see how they're doing, how are they feeling. And I found that really helped form those positive relationships, especially with our kindergarten friends that we didn't know our incoming students, where our first and second grade friends, we had already had these great relationships. So again, looking for that sparkle really helped form very lasting relationships with my students.
One thing that changed me as a student this year was that last year we weren't as aware of being socially distanced and how many germs we spread by just talking and by doing music and singing and music, and we weren't washing our hands as much, and we just weren't staying 6 feet apart as much. And so that really changed this year, but I think it changed for the better because we're safer doing all that stuff and taking all those precautions.
I think the most positive thing that has come out of this for me is the resiliency in students. They came in, followed protocols, followed all guidelines, and took everything in stride without even questioning it. No complaints, no questions, just did it. They amazed me with their skills and the way they just took what they had to take and moved on. This also showed me how important in-person learning is. The social interaction, the eye smiles, the just everything together. It showed me how undeniably important in-person learning is, and it can never be replaced by a screen.
One way the pandemic changed me as a student is it made me more aware of how much of an impact we can have on each other and how one small thing can change everything.
So the pandemic has changed me in many ways as a teacher. It's been a long year, but we have definitely increased our digital fluency, getting to know how to use Zoom and several different websites on the computer and communicate things through Google Classroom. But in addition to that, I think it's also improved my long-term planning and being organized. I have a specific goal where I know where we're going, and in doing so, it makes me more flexible because there's a really clear target where we're headed towards. And I've always communicated with parents about how students are doing, and that's something I enjoy. But I think now embracing families as really partnerships in educating their children and making these partnerships really strong, I've had to really find ways to communicate very clear academic goals for their students and have parents be able to find these things on Google Classroom. And so that's been a broadening of my job this year, which I actually think has been beneficial. So moving forward, it has been a long year and I definitely wouldn't want to repeat it, but I would certainly want to keep up some of the websites that we've found that bring a digital platform into the classroom and allow students to collaborate in new ways. Also, including parents in this partnership and sharing those academic goals and keeping that partnership strong so that we can all support the children to grow together.
I think the pandemic has made me more independent with my schoolwork. It has also made me more independent with making sure that I'm on task with everything and to make sure that I'm keeping up with everything that I'm supposed to.
One way the pandemic changed me as a teacher is it made me more aware of my students' overall well-being. I feel like I had a more holistic approach this year, and I think it just translated to great success academically, socio-emotionally, and just the students seemed very well adjusted after that increased approach in social-emotional learning.
I started a new school during the pandemic, which was hard meeting new people with masks on. I was able to meet a couple of kids over the summer, and they were really welcoming to me. My teachers tried to involve me in things we were doing, and because this year was so different for all of the kids, we got to adapt together.
This year, the pandemic has not changed what I teach, but more so how I teach. I've had to be more mindful of group work and students collaborating with each other in more unique ways. When I do plan my instruction, I had to plan it more where the students had to do activities more independently versus in groups. For example, in science experiments, we had to do them, plan for more independent, having more supplies on hand. Students couldn't share the supplies, so I had to keep that in mind also. So a lot of pre-planning had to happen to make everything work and be in place.
One way the pandemic has changed me as a student is I feel more engaged in school after a half a year of distance learning, and now we have challenging assignments. One positive thing about this school year is we have more time outside because of mask breaks, and we've even had the chance to have snack outside and some classes outside.
The pandemic has caused me to be creative in ways using technology to keep my students socially distancing but collaborating at the same time. Through Zoom and Google Meet, I can have the kids still partner and work in small groups for science experiments and projects while keeping the social distance and the safety protocols we've enforced this year. It also worked to my advantage because I had 2 distance learners, and it kept them involved in the in-person classes and experiments and collaborating and partnering, and it made them feel more of a part of the class when they could Zoom with their peers.
Burnham has never had assigned seats and desks. We had beanbag chairs
and whiteboard tables, and we were able to move around a lot. So as a student, I've had to change how I learn a lot.
And something positive that I can take away from this school year is that we were here. I think our kids are so lucky compared to other kids in the state and the country that we were able to be here the whole time. Our district was really able to figure out a plan that worked and that kept us here face to face with our kids. And there's nothing like being face to face with our kids. It really felt good to have that experience, especially after the end of the year last year. And another positive thing I felt was that we got a little bit creative with things like snow days. So we were able to move those to remote learning days, and we can get out a little bit earlier, which is always nice. So those were some really positive things to come from this year.
One way the pandemic changed me as a student is that now I'm more grateful for being here. And sometimes kids just have to be in distance learning, but at this school, we don't have to do any distance learning. And it makes me more grateful for what I have and like what we could do at this school.
Even though I would prefer not to repeat the situation or the countless extra hours that were required, I am happy I had the privilege to teach our first grade students and to get to know them and their families. In addition, I've had the opportunity to work with the most amazing teachers and paraprofessionals and school staff who remain so profoundly dedicated, motivated, and positive throughout this incredibly challenging year.
Oops.
Wait, go back one.
Sorry.
Okay. The pandemic forced us all into a state of change. It was in this common experience that we all gained the confidence to navigate through the unknown. We generated goals, set plans in motion, and supported each other through the learning needed to help our students achieve their personal best, both emotionally and academically.
We believe as a whole, our staff, students, and families exemplified the extraordinary. Our journey this year, although not without its challenges, led us to a new place.
Mm-hmm.
Comments, questions?
I actually think the last picture looks like Megan.
Yeah, we found that.
Traffic.
I'm the fish out of water.
Oh, not that one.
No, not that one. The hero.
With the heels.
And the heels.
Well, I appreciate you both sharing that video in advance to me because I ugly cried the first time I saw it. I'm still choked up. I'm watching other board members around, and it's we text our staff, we text our students, and they're remarkable. And we trusted. And I have to tell you that trust was not broken and remarkable things happened. And so thank you both for reminding us of that. And at this time, Kim Gallo, would you please share with us this year at Chappaqua Valley School?
And I'm muted. Yay. Okay, I'm happy to share our school operation in the time of COVID. Ben has our presentation. It's not nearly as graphic or poetic, but I will tell you that it's an accurate composition of what we did this year. I will start with a brief story about what COVID taught me as a leader, and that is, as much as I love students, and I've always made the comments each summer that come August, I start saying, okay, enough of the quiet building, I want kids back. I had no idea how much I missed our students until our 6th graders got off the bus for orientation. and I hadn't seen students in so many months, I actually had to kind of turn away a little bit because I was getting teary. And I don't do that at school. I go into what my husband calls my Mrs. Gallo mode. That just doesn't happen. But I was so happy to see students. And the really gratifying thing was that I learned that the students were very happy to see us. We owe a great debt of gratitude to having a courageous superintendent who kept us in school all year. And I know darn well that she got a lot of negative feedback from folks that were scared and folks that were uncertain about the year. But we persevered together under her leadership and kept ourselves in school. And that has meant a great deal to our students. So let's start with the big picture. At Chippewa, we looked at safety first. We started measuring. If you look on my desk right now, you will see a thermometer and a measuring tape. And that's what we used all the time because we tried to say how many students we could get in every single different space. And we tried to keep that distancing so that when we contact traced, teachers were able to tell us, yes, my students are 6 feet apart. We don't have to quarantine whole classrooms. We are actually going by those guidelines and we're doing what we need to do. And we did that with 4 simple words. We planned, we implemented, and then we learned how that worked and we revised. That's how our year looked this year. We did a lot of learning. Never before have we been such a community of learners. The next slide, please. Scheduling. We deliberately used first period as a shorter period, met the same amount of time during the course of the week, but we kept it a shorter period so that it met daily and students came to school to a reliable homeroom period. Everyone knew that they started their day in first period, and we thought that that was very important, that continuity, that confidence in this is what my day looks like. So our days look like this. Every day starts with first period. Then on even days, we meet with 2, 4, and 6. On odd days, we meet with 3, 5, and 7. That was a very simple strategy that limited spread when we had cases of COVID or contacts. So that if a student, when we did our contact tracing, we were looking at 4 periods a day rather than 7. I happen to believe this is also a good strategy for education, but when it comes to safety, it worked and we utilized that strategy. And that was one that we didn't have to revise because it worked very effectively. Next slide, please. Our teaching assignments were changed due to scheduling changes and need for daily preparation periods. We pivoted from a traditional schedule to a semi-block schedule in a very short period of time. And the reason that I make this point is that teachers do have to have their preparation periods, and a lot of changes were made to the schedule at the last minute so that we could accommodate a more effective workday for our teachers. We also transitioned our students between classes in a staggered way so that we didn't have all of our students in the hallways at all times. Our room assignments for teachers was a very significant shift. Teachers moved, students stay put as much as possible. This is not the way teachers are used to operating. This is not the most effective way to use your resources and materials, but it needed to be done for safety, and our teachers made it work, and it's hard work. Our lunches. Oh, our lunches. I should probably sing a song about our lunches. We started with groups of 25. Divide that by 430 students, and you start to get an idea of just how many groupings we had. We went to groups of 50 after March 25th. I'd like to tell you a little bit about this with a story from my favorite quote from the year from one of our students. He was a distance learner for the first 3 months of school. And he came back to school and he was in my lunch group. And on the very first day, he's a big kid, and he was swinging around one of his classmates, not out of anger. They were playing. He picked him up and he was swinging around. And I said, "Oh, boys, you got to be kidding me. There's no distancing here." And he put his friend down and said, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Gallo. I'm sorry." I said, just please stay apart. Keep your distance. The next day, I was about to take his temperature on the bus when he came off of the bus. And he looked at me and he said, my favorite quote of the year, "Really sorry about yesterday, Mrs. Gallo. I got used to the lawlessness of distance learning." I thought that was, first of all, I thought it was very funny, and I laughed. It was just perfect. However, I'd like each of you to think about that is distance learning in the eyes of a student. That student saw distance learning as a very lawless environment in which he did not have the structure that he needed. I won't belabor that, but I'd like you to think about that because I think there's a lesson there for all of us. Please change the slide. Instruction. A lot of this year was about barriers. It's hard to collaborate when you need to stay 6 feet apart. It's hard to collaborate when some students are distance learners and some students are in person. There are barriers to differentiation, a very important strategy in terms of the ability to flexibly group and the ability to meet with students both during class time and outside of class time. We came up with a lot of creative solutions, and a lot of them did have to do with technology. The shared Google Docs, programs like Pear Deck and Ed Puzzle. It doesn't matter what those programs do. What they did for us was gave us creative ways to group students electronically and to come up with results that were in the moment without having to be either in the same room or close to one another. The VOSES technology that the World Language Department is using has a lot of different solutions to putting students together and having alternative lessons for them. We also creatively use space. Boy, did we use creative spacing. The library, outside spaces, the barn, the labs, the new workshops, all of those were put into service to put enough kids together to have a viable classroom. We had a commitment to find ways for our students to engage with content and with each other in our classes. Next slide, please. Curriculum and teacher planning. This really is looking at what's going to happen in the future by looking back. What didn't we do? Let's look at what is very, very important to do and the things that we may have to say are going to fall by the wayside for a little bit so that we prioritize for this school year and the school year beyond. I think about what it will look like to engage students again next year, because a lot of what we've done for safety doesn't look like engagement, and our students are out of that habit in many ways. We think about that all the time, and we plan for that all of the time. What can we condense in our curriculum? What can we consolidate? What are the priorities for our students as they move from grade to grade? Assessment was a challenge with distance learners. There's no doubt about that. We looked for reliable electronic assessments. And again, there are several names of technology that we used. It's not important which one is which or what it does. What's important is it gave us information about what students did in groups without having to actually put them in groups. We could put them together. I'm also very happy to tell you that we were able to do quite a number of in-person assessments with PSAT, SAT, AP tests, and our upcoming finals. We're looking for our students to take those assessments in person in a way that feels the most like school, in a way that is comfortable for them. Next slide, please. Our co-curricular and extracurricular activities are places where we use a lot of patience. We limited the resource, we taxed the resources of our superintendent, who went back and forth to our health department to get as much as we could for our kids. We had limited in-person meetings during lunch advisory, lots of Zoom meetings. We turned a lot of events into Zoom meetings. I would like to highlight our drama program as one who not only adapted to the pandemic in a very special way with 2 wonderful performances and a middle school performance that's coming up, but out of the 3 performances, 2 high school and 1 middle school, 2 of them were written by students. And I'd like to give a huge compliment to Ben Allen and also to Beth Harbison for having the courage and the confidence to allow students to own their own learning, their own creativity, and to put on wonderful performances. We also had some in-person events when we could. The fall of 2020 was held at Spring Hill Vineyard. I can't imagine why I didn't know that name first crack. I was just there Saturday night. We had our holiday door decorating contest, our prom, and more. We look for ways to get our students and our community together when we can safely. Next slide, please. We also had our co-curricular and extracurricular activities, and we all know that that was a very trying thing. They were modified in the fall, winter, and spring seasons. I can't imagine what it's like to run a race or play a basketball game with a mask on, but our kids did it. They did it willingly and they did it well. The limits on spectators caused me as a principal to say, if parents can't come, I need to watch on the Zoom. It's not fair for me to take advantage of that. And I can only imagine how difficult that was for parents and grandparents not to be able to attend those contests. There were reduced competition schedules. State tournaments looked different. However, in the end, there was great competition to be had and our students enjoyed themselves. I really think that the thing I learned the most from this pandemic is how important it is to be in school. If you asked me in August, what is it going to look like? I thought we would spend a lot of time arguing with kids about masks, arguing with kids about this awkward learning community that we needed to set up for safety. And I was wrong. I was totally wrong. Our kids came in and they were compliant because they wanted to be in school. What a wonderful message for all of us as educators. Next slide, please. Oh, and when we talk about contact tracing, what we talk about is the gathering of information, the communication involved, and helping our students with that transition to distance learning. That goes far beyond contact tracing. Once a child is in distance learning, for many of them, it was a very difficult way to learn. And we tried to put a lot of supports in place so that students would have what they needed to do what they needed to do. Mass breaks were a very interesting, almost casual break that students needed during the day. When I look at students on mass breaks, I see them kind of quietly walk down the hall, but when they hit that door, they are very happy. They rip that mask off and they do a little bit of running and a little bit of hooting and hollering, but it's exactly what they need after being confined in that mask. Wintertime inside, lots of our windows were open all of the time, and our students adjusted to that. They brought in their sweaters and they brought in their sweatshirts, and frankly, so did their principal, but we made it work. We balanced support and empathy, and both of those were important. This has not been easy on our students. They've needed the extra support, and we've tried very hard to give it to them. But despite the challenges, we have moved forward. I am very proud of the agri-science program and the development that we have made this year. We turned a structure into a functioning barn. We turned a structure into a functioning greenhouse. We turned spaces into places where students can create in our workshops. And our kitchen is a magnificent place where students create wonderful meals and talk about sustainability in agriculture and talk about what is healthy and what is good for students and good for adults. I've learned already so much from our students in that program. They've done a wonderful job. And as a school, we conducted a very thorough and thoughtful research of our grading practices, and we look for more equitable ways to grade our students. That sets us in such a good place for the future. That sets us in such a good place for students to learn in a relevant and equitable way. I'm very proud of what we've done. I'm very proud of who we are as a school. Our kids are safe and they are free to learn. And that was not easy. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you all. The presentations are outstanding, and I think as a board to realize some of the things that were happening in the background, these women really were ducks on the water, and the amount that was going on underneath, it was just magnificent. But I think more than that, I think we need to thank the board for allowing us to do all of these things, because it was a remarkable year. It was a challenging year because all of those things you had to do was on top of doing everything that you typically would have to do in a normal year. And so it was really extraordinary. And I think you really get to see some of the amazing leadership that happens here in Region 12, but it doesn't happen without all of your support. So thank you. And thank you to our principals who shared today. Just outstanding job. So thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to reports and recognition. The first is my report. I would point out that since we opened the school buildings in our district to in-person learning on August 31st, we have had 200, that was 267 days ago. And we have 19 more to go until we close these schools for the year and we finish our school year. And this is a tribute to the outstanding leadership of our superintendent, our director of finance, our director of facilities, all of our administrators, our building leaders, and most importantly, the students that you saw on that video. This is the way we do it. This is the way we run a school system, and this is the way we have achievement in a very difficult and challenging year. And I want to thank all of our staff. Megan, please thank your staff for me, because I think it's nothing short of outstanding, the effort and the way this was done. This is the way to do it. And I am very proud of our school district and how we did this year. And that was just one heck of a presentation by our building leaders, all of them. And I can appreciate the difficulties they had. I had an interesting conversation yesterday at an event that actually took place in Roxbury, and it was kind of interesting to be at an event where no one was masked and no one was social distancing, and it was basically a whole group of vaccinated people. And I think that I had an interesting conversation with someone there who talked about risk, and that most people don't really appreciate how we deal with risk. And that's something that's going to come up. It's going to be very important for us going forward. because now we've got one mission in life. We need to get as many people vaccinated in our communities, in our schools, and in this country that we can. It's interesting because he had said to me, he's heard a lot of people express concerns that it's risky maybe to take these vaccines. But he said, you have to balance that against the risk of having COVID and what that can do to you, what that can do to your family, the long-term implications for the people, fortunately, relatively few who suffer long-term difficulties. And so I think we're all going to have to learn about risk and making assessments and trying to weigh one risk against the other. Everything's risky, but you got to do something. You can't just sit there. You can't just hide in your house, whether it be from this or anything else. I mean, you have to take, every day you get in your car and drive somewhere, you take a risk. And so the question is, how can you mitigate the risks? How can you make them easier? That's our challenge in the year ahead, because I would really love to see us get back to some degree of normalcy, which is obviously not going to happen completely on our district until vaccination is available to the youngest members of our community. But I think here at the middle high school, we are going to have some degree of opportunity as we move forward. And I'd like to see the rest of our schools quickly catch up. And I think that's what we're going to all have to do. And we're going to have to figure out how we can manage the risk and make it safe. And I think that's what we can do. And which is going to take work. It's going to take more work like you saw here today. But I am very optimistic that that's where we're going to get. And because of this long agenda, that's all I'm going to say. And I'm going to turn it over to Megan for her report.
All right. Well, as many of you know, our prom was held on Saturday night. Our juniors and seniors looked amazing. It was so wonderful to see like the elements of normalcy in that. So I want to thank the Ingracias for their generosity in allowing us to use the Spring Hill Farm. I also we need to thank our three selectmen, Curtis Reed, Barbara Henry, and Jim Britton, for their financial as well as their willingness to celebrate and champion our students. It was just when they come together and really tell our children they've done a great job and this is their reward, you can tell our students were really proud. They were proud to be there, and it was a great moment. And speaking of proud moments, I have to share all three of our elementary schools, the Burnham School, Booth Free School, and Washington Primary School, have been recognized as top achievers in the Governor's Reading Challenge. So our schools continue to encourage our students to read over the summer, and we continue to be recognized at the state level. So our last time that our three schools were recognized, we were one of only 20 schools across the district, and all three of our schools in this district were recognized for their achievements. So thank you to Principal Judd and Principal Coella for supporting and promoting reading for our elementary students. I do want to share that we will be celebrating graduations and promotion ceremonies in person this year. So that includes our Aloha ceremonies, our 8th grade ceremonies, as well as the 12th grade graduation. And after graduation does not mean we let go of the pride of our students. We have an alumni, Wilson King, who had traveled internationally and is at the London School of Economics. And one of his teachers asked him to join and enter into the Renaissance competition. And he decided for a lark he would, and he ended up winning, the first American winner of the Renaissance Prize. And he won as he had to consider the changes to the coronavirus pandemic and brought the measurements of consumer pricing. Wilson King is a student of the London School of Economics. He described how the rapid changing in the consumer spending patterns during the pandemic may have induced weighting that has occurred, and how curtailing the in-store price collection has led to a movement of error. And so to say that when he was put in front of the judging panels, Mr. King's essay stood out for the strong field of comprehensiveness of discussion and the clarity in which was quite technical issue in the way it was explained. And Wilson went on to explain that it was because of his teachings here at Chippewa He explained how the humanities and math department and how unique the Chippewa experience was and how it's led to the contributions of his success. So to know that it is one where once they graduate, they're still very much part of Chippewa, and we are very, very proud. So I have to thank his mother, Julie King, for sharing that story and making certain I got the information so I could share with all of you. So if there aren't any questions on my update, I would like to share some of our appointments and some of our resignations and retirements. So we recently hired our 4th agri-science teacher, Megan Berry, will be joining us. Megan has experience. She has taught at Wamogo as well as Suffield. And her background with animals as well as plant science will serve us very well and round out our agri-science team. We do have some resignations to announce. Our school resource officer, Officer Anamo, will be leaving us effective the end of the school year. And where Rich may not be in our schools next year, he will still be in Washington. We have been very fortunate to have Rich supporting our students for the past 3 years. Rich has introduced the Spartan program to our 5th graders and positive choices for their decision making. Rich also initiated the ALICE training for all of our staffs in order to help make a safer community for our schools, as well as his relationship building with students and staff members alike. So as we say goodbye to him as an SRO, we still say hello to him as a Washington police officer. So we are glad to know we still have his support. We are also saying goodbye to Marianne Summeroff, which was effective on May 17th. Marianne was a remarkable support at Washington Primary School. The staff and students at Washington have thrived under Marianne's tireless support, and we wish her well in her next journey. And as far as retirements, I have to share that we have our Chris Shagru, who is retiring from the English department here at Chippewa, effective the end of this year. And I have to tell you all that when I came to Region 12 3 years ago, in my early meetings with teachers, there came these like magical tales of Chris Shagru. And every humanities teacher that I encountered talked about how they were better educators because of Chris Shagru. They talked about how she was their mentor, or how they team taught with her, and how they partnered with her. But mostly what I heard about was her unwavering belief in our students and academic achievement. What I also heard over the years was about her generosity. She would secretly pay for books, field trips, and different supports that our students needed. Additionally, she would tutor our students during her free time. Many of them were not even in her classes. So I'm just here telling you that I'm not letting that stay a secret anymore. She has been doing some remarkable things to support our students. So Chris deserves the best in her retirement. But we thank you for making Chippewa a little bit more academic, a little bit more caring, and a lot better of a place because of her influence. So we will miss her. And that concludes my report for this evening.
I just would like to piggyback off of what Megan just said. I think Mr. Greer.
Okay, I'd like to piggyback off of what Megan said. I just think Ms. Shagru is pretty magical, and not just as a educator, but also from the experience of a parent. When I first sat down and had a conference with her, I was amazed at how well she just knew my child, and that to me just literally brought tears to my eyes. So I just think she's an amazing person and teacher, and so I wish her all the best in her retirement. And I also would like to thank Officer Rich for his time here in the region. I think he has made an enormous connection to the students, and I'm always amazed at how many of our students respect him and value him. And as a member of this community, I'm just so grateful he's still part of it. So I just wanted to share that too.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, I guess now we'll move on
Yes, well, in keeping with the COVID theme of the evening, I can tell you that COVID does continue to permeate some of the more atypical budget line item balances, in that unemployment insurance is in negative territory, 28%, $8,440 over budget. Heating oil, negative 75%, $69,780. The reason for that is the classrooms have to have the windows remain open. Although now I don't imagine we're heating the classrooms, but they used a lot of oil, and to keep the fresh air circulating throughout the classrooms, and to mitigate the possible COVID problems. However, some two line items in particular remain well under budget. Reach transportation, which, we had to cancel Reach for the year, although it will pick up again in the summer. But that ended at 90% under budget, $122,000. On field trips, athletic events, late buses, that was 83% under budget at $75,766. So we're going to finish the year in a good place. We're currently with 10.39% remaining. There is a balance of $2,369,548. So that means we'll probably most definitely be able to put the $228,000 into the 1% non-recurring capital fund. Over the last week, in the run-up to the Board of Ed elections, I had the opportunity to look at some state statute concerning the regional state statute surrounding Board of Ed elections. And I also had the opportunity to view the 1966 regionalization plan that was submitted to the state of Connecticut in order for it was originally 5 towns: Bridgewater, Bethlehem, Roxbury, Washington, and Sherman. And that dwindled down to 3. It's a 13-page document. If you have the time, it's well worth investing in checking out what occurred. But I thought some of the key points to that report that was submitted to the state, and keep in mind that it was at the time when regionalization was in its infancy, and Region 12 was to become the first region in the state to have a complete K through 12 system. Some of the school systems still remain. Region 1 has each of the towns in Region 1 has their own school board, and they have a regional school board. But in 1966, here in Region 12, we had a K through 12 population of 1,175 students. The operating budget for all 3 towns was $571,732, which is 2% of the current budget. The cost per pupil then was $487 per year. This land that this regional high school, middle school sits on sold for $100,000. So just a little trivia, and all that's going on tonight, I wish that the pioneers who started this school system could come back and witness all the good that has come out of their original their original dreams and hopes and expectations. And it's really a testament to what, problem, reaction, solution is everything I've seen tonight. There's a problem, people react to it, and you come up with a better solution. It makes for a better, and these students are a product of all this, which is definitely the plus in all of this. So thanks.
We'll go on to committee reports. Mary, Cabe.
There'll be the final webinar for CABE is on June 14th from noon. I believe it's from noon to 1:15, and that's going to tell you, that's a legislative wrap up, and they will tell you what happened and what are the implications for your district. There is a cost to see this, but it might be something that some of us may be interested in taking a look at, because do we have any information about, I got nothing from CABE so far about our 2%, the 1% capital non-recurring account to 2%. Have you heard anything about that?
We have not yet. Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong. We were thinking that was going to be the end of the first week in June that we expect an update on that. We do know that it's become a little bit more complicated because they have not just isolated it to the 1% to the 2% for the regional district. They've thrown in other things into that legislation. So we're carefully watching how that plays out.
I did notice that was like number 3 in a package of different things that they were going to change for next year. So I can see where that could get all bogged down. The other thing is the bill to remove the religious exemption for schools in Connecticut that has passed. But the exemptions from kindergarten to 12th grade are grandfathered in. And for Region 12, I think that's going to have a big, it's going to send us backwards. We don't have herd immunity in our schools. Herd immunity is 95%, and we don't have it. And I think the parents better know this, that they're sending their kids to schools that don't have herd immunity for vaccinations for measles, mumps, and rubella. None of them. One of them is 20% below below what they need to be for herd immunity. And our hands are tied. There's nothing we can do about this except educate our parents on why they should immunize their children. I got into this whole thing I was interested to begin with because I'm a healthcare professional about the immunizations. But when I went to the CABE convention, and I specifically went to the Connecticut Board of Education meeting, and after I asked the question about vaccines and CABE's position and everything else, Dr. Cardona himself asked me to go and testify. And that was the first time I ever thought about doing it. So it just makes me dumbfounded that we're so educated in this region, and yet we can't have herd immunity for our children. And then we have a state senator who says, oh yes, we have herd immunity everywhere in Connecticut because 96% of the children are immunized. So I did tell him that 3 towns in their district have schools that don't have herd immunity, and you voted no. I just find it, I'm dumbfounded on the whole thing. So I think we need to educate our parents to go ahead and immunize their kids for measles, mumps, rubella. I read a letter that was published in 1986 by Roald Dahl, the man who wrote James and the Giant Peach and many other children's books. And his daughter actually died of measles. And once she became very, very ill, there was nothing that they could do. And in 1986, there was nothing they could do if their child got to this point. So people don't get it. They say, oh, yes, we can close down the schools like we did with COVID if this happens. It's not going to happen. I don't think they think it's going to happen in Connecticut, just because there were two active cases recently of measles in Connecticut. They still think that it's not going to happen here, and it can, especially without having the herd immunity. So does anybody have any ideas about what we can do? Because I think our hands are tied.
Actually, Mary, there was a wonderful article in this weekend's New York Times about life expectancy. And since it was first studied in the 1660s, and in that period of time from then until now, the human life expectancy has doubled. And it's not just the fact, it's due to a variety of factors. And one of them was the advent of vaccines. A lot of people don't realize that the first vaccinations for smallpox occurred in the 1760s. Mm-hmm. And it was a bit experimental, but it was done. And the point this article made is that it's not enough to invent the vaccine or to solve the scientific problem. There are political and there are organizational problems that until they are conquered, you're not going to get those needles in people's arms and get the results you have. The other interesting takeaway from that is the reason the smallpox vaccine was that smallpox was able to be eradicated worldwide is because the virus itself lost the ability to be transmitted into animals other than humans. And because it was exclusively a human pestilence, we were able to eradicate it. And the last person who was, where it was the last person that suffered and was eradicated, and occurred in 1979. And it was a long effort. And so this similarly is going to be a long effort, but I hate to tell you, it's looking increasingly like we're going to have COVID around, just like the flu, for some period of time, and maybe forever. And that's the sad thing about it. But we're going to have to figure out how to deal with it. And I think it's very important that we show leadership and that we help people make the decision, if they haven't made the decision to be vaccinated, to get vaccinated. I just think that's the way we're going to be able to control it best here. But it's more than just the science. And that was the takeaway. I urge everyone to read that article if you haven't. It was absolutely brilliant, and it taught me a lot of things I didn't understand, about these things. But there you go.
Also, the problem is also being exacerbated by the fact that right before the vote, that many parents applied for the religious exemption here in Region 12. And so that means that they don't want their children to be immunized for COVID because that's the implication, is that that's why they did it. They did this right before the vote came for the measles, mumps, rubella, and they see it in the future for COVID. I guess what they don't realize is the rules can change. So this is a problem that we're going to have in Region 12 next year, the next year, and the next year, and the next year, the next 12 years. And anybody can come up with any ideas on what we can do to educate our parents, it would be a good thing.
Okay, John.
I have two thoughts about what Mary's talking about. You can take that very insignificant religious exemption population and compare it to the population of people who are just simply, or students who are simply non-compliant, which is like 20 times greater than the religious exemption students. And What do you do with staff who are not current in their immunization record? This new bill includes every student from pre-kindergarten through a doctorate's degree in college. That's what this new legislation mandates. So if you're going to try to get all those people to be compliant, you're never going to get to the bottom of it.
Okay.
A lot of it has nothing to do with religion. They're just using that as an excuse. Everybody knows that.
Well-
And these people decided that they're going to follow, instead of following real doctors, they're following witch doctors. And that's why we have the problem that we have today.
Well, it's definitely a vexing problem. We'll have to keep working on it. Thank you, Mary, for bringing it to our attention. We'll go on now to the Curriculum and Education Programming Committee. Mike?
Hey, no report, but we do have our last meeting coming up on the same day that we have the board's last meeting on June 14th. And I just wanted to use a little bit of my time to publicly thank Julie and her committee on a fabulous brochure here. I just had an opportunity to read through it fairly quickly, but I'd love to see this plastered everywhere because it really reflects well on Region 12. So kudos to you and your committee, Julie.
Okay. Finance and Operations. Alex?
Yes, we had a meeting on May 17th, and once again, all committee members were present. The first thing that we did is we went across through the financials. Nicole walked us through the individual lines that needed explanation, and there was discussion about them. There was obviously discussion about the 1% fund versus the quote unquote 2% fund. Just so that you're aware, the F&O committee voted 5-0 to recommend to the Board of Ed that we transfer 1% of our budget to the fund. It was unanimous. We also discussed the RFPs that were in progress. 16 people showed up for the walkthrough. There was some concern about availability and getting things, and it was suggested that maybe something like the windows should be purchased as soon as they're available and then stored until the proper time to install them, rather than be at the mercy of getting them to deliver on the day that we're ready to install them. Also, lost my place here. While the work is being done on Chippewa, it will require the closing of this building, and the summer programs will be moved over to the Washington Primary School. Many of the maintenance issues are going to be addressed this summer, but still the 5-year maintenance plan needs to be updated. There's still issues that either are or will be on the agenda in the near future. The final thing was food service, and I'm not going to go into that because I don't want to steal Nicole's thunder. So that's really my report, and I'm open for questions.
If it gets switched from 1% to the 2% fund, will that be for this year, or will we have to wait till next year to make it to 2%?
As I understand it, and correct me, Nicole, if I'm wrong, if they get it before June 30th, we would be eligible to do it. Whether we have the funds to transfer a second amount, 200,000 is another issue. But I think that we would be allowed to do it. We'd have to have a special meeting to approve it, but I think it would be allowed.
Yeah, Alex, that only works though if they make it effective immediately on passage.
Yeah.
it gets signed by the governor in time. And that's the tricky thing, because most laws in Connecticut are effective either July 1 or October 1. And sometimes even January, the following January 1. So that it depends on how they word the final bill is worded and whether or not it's effective immediately on passage, which is unusual for them to be effective immediately on passage. So I would think it's not likely we're going to get a chance to put another 1% in this year, probably next year.
Good, thank you.
We'll go on to labor negotiations, Jim.
We started our negotiations with the custodial union, had an initial meeting. So that's ongoing. Several of us are involved on the negotiating committee. So we have another meeting planned. Hopefully we get it done as soon as possible. But initial proposals have been exchanged.
Thank you, Jim.
That's it.
Okay, Julie, strategic long-range planning.
Yes, we did meet tonight and we did pass around our brochure. This is not the high quality version, but it is the version that you all see tonight, and we are getting the final version very soon. We're going to start with 500 copies that will get into real estate offices and into our towns. We do have it online already, so it is out there. So that will just be an initial sort of get it out there and see what we do. It's not a pressing issue at the moment because our numbers are really quite terrific. And I'll just segue into tuition in. We've had 202 requests, which is really quite outstanding. And we did talk about the tuition in policy. We may make some adjustments to that. The committee discussed that this evening, and we're going to come back with some recommendations that we'll share with the whole board. And finally, on our signs, we will have 3 new signs, we think, installed and in place by the start of school year. And that will be the booth free sign, the Burnham sign, and the Chapag sign. And Washington Primary already has a terrific sign, so that will give us a full entourage of beautiful signs for our 4 schools. And that's it.
Julie, thank you very much. This is really an amazing effort. I mean, just looking on the inside cover of this thing, if that's all anyone reads, they're going to have an impression of this district that's markedly different than they probably did before. This is really terrific. Thank you very much. Okay. So I guess we're on to new business and updates. We'll start with the presentation of graduation plan for June 12, 2021.
Okay. So I was very wrong in our original planning days. The original plan that we had for graduation was going to be a replica of the 2020 graduation. After some very strong feedback, we had gone back to the drawing board, and really the whole purpose of graduation is to celebrate the graduates before us. And so our intent has always been to make certain that it is reflective of the desires of the graduates and their families. So it was never an intent to misread the room, but I certainly misread the room to the point that when we surveyed the students, 85% of them wanted something that was a lot more of a traditional graduation. So I got a big old 15 on that grade. But it is to say that now what we have is a graduation in which it is the hybrid. We picked some of the best of what we loved from last year, and still holding the tradition and those time-honored moments of graduation that our students love. So we will begin at 11:30. There will be a parade. We will go through all 3 of our towns, and we will be advertising using our PTOs to make certain that those who want to cheer on our graduates, they know the parade route and about the times that we will be at the different locations. And then we will end the parade at the Bridgewater Fairgrounds. So at 1 o'clock, we will hold our graduation. What's going to happen is it will be an outdoor graduation. Because we are looking to have the graduation be all inclusive, we have provided 8-foot by 8-foot squares for each graduate's 5 guests, and with a walkway in between. And we've also provided a spot in the back for anybody who would like to stay safe in their car. There will be 2 large screen TVs on either side, so that way there is full viewing access, recognizing that social distance also means that people may not be able to see the stage, but with these giant 9-foot by 16-foot monitors on either side, people will be able to truly enjoy and watch the graduation. We will also have a spot designated for families to take the photographs. So we figure the more that we can map out the actual fairgrounds, the more we provide for safe pictures, for safe experience. We are allowing anybody that is in their chairs, including our graduates, may be unmasked in their chairs. We are outdoors, we will be 6 feet apart. So and it will be in June in the middle of a day. So we recognize the heat and everything, and we have received approval for that as well. Students, when they go up, will be able to cross the stage. They will be handed their diploma jacket. And then when they turn in their robe on Monday, we will give them their actual diploma. So we've tried to marry as much as we could with the traditions. It will be outside. We will hold most of the pomp and circumstance for the students, but really when we represented the new plan to the graduates and their families last Wednesday, I slept much better that night than I did the first round, and I can tell you that it really met with a lot of enthusiasm and positive praise. So we feel like we are on the right track now. As we get closer, we'll continue to watch what is the guidance and see if there's any restrictions that we are able to lift and change. But again, we want to make certain this is an inclusive graduation. So we want to still provide those opportunities for people who may not be comfortable being out with everyone. So at this point, are there any questions regarding the graduation?
Okay.
Mrs. Gallo, did I miss anything?
Well, I probably shouldn't say this, but I don't think you got it wrong. I think you planned the graduation in January to the best that we could do. You then opened up the discussion, and although the discussion didn't go well, you got a good read on what folks wanted you to ask for. You immediately agreed to do that, and we were able to come up with a very good compromise, as we did last year. So just going to say, I don't know that you got it wrong, but I think that we continued with the process, and we're going to get it very right in the end. And yes, you got it all.
Okay, sorry, Jen.
I just would also like to say that I really appreciate how, Megan, you really listen and you come back and you revise so that you really feel that the community is part of the decision making. And I think that that says a lot about the kind of leader that you are and also the kind of listener that you are. And I know a lot of the parents and the students appreciate that you came back to the table hearing what they said and made the adjustments that you needed to. So thank you for doing that.
It's not every leader who can take a situation, look at it and decide, you know what, I'm going to reverse field on this because they're right and their input is good, and we can do it and we can make it happen. That is a sign of a strong leader. And we are fortunate to have one right here. Okay, now we're going to go on to the Ed Advance support of the cafeteria, and I will turn it over to Ms. Grant, who will tell us about that.
So as you know, in 1920, we partnered with Ed Advance as consultants in our cafeteria with the goal of improving the quality and variety of the offerings to the kids, and also taking a stab at managing the deficit that the cafeteria continued to run. Unfortunately, that plan was derailed when COVID hit, and this year looked drastically different. What we focused on this year was making sure we got food to all of our kids safely. But it did derail our plans of smoothies and paninis, which we were well embraced when we first put them out. So we've had a couple of changes that are coming to the food service next year. One, Megan had shared with you that Ginger Flanagan, our longtime cafeteria manager, is retiring. And also another of our experienced members of our CAF is transitioning to a different department at Chippewa. So that gives us a unique opportunity to try something new. So we're going to expand our partnership with Ed Advance. We've asked them to come in and take over the management of food service operations. The staff that we do have in place here at Chippewa will remain with us. They'll remain Region 12 employees. They will be managed by Ed Advance. Ed Advance will bring in some of their own managers. And what we've asked them to do, hopefully next year we will be in a more normal cafeteria setting at Chippewa. We've asked them to expand on what we started 2 years ago with more offering, more variety, better quality. And we're excited to bring them in and to give them that opportunity to continue to grow what we started, even though we've been halted for a year. So one thing COVID did do for us is it allowed us to launch food service programs in our elementary schools, which has been really well received at that level. And they're going to continue to expand upon that. What we hope to be able to do is, with our current setups in our elementary schools, we can only offer cold lunches. Ed Advance is going to try to position us so that we can also offer hot offerings a few days a week in our elementary schools, things that the kids really love at that level: chicken nuggets, mac and cheese, pizza. So we're hoping with our partnership with them, we can really zone in on what our kids really like to eat and get a lot of support for our food service program.
Nicole, you didn't tell us perhaps one of the most important financial issues, which is the fact that Ed Advance will use the user fees, the fees that are paid for the lunches, to fund the program. And if there's a deficit, it's their deficit, not ours. And so that will end the problem we've had in having large cafeteria deficits. This is a really exciting program, because I understand the food choices are going to be spectacular. They're going to be really good. So we're really, really pleased with that.
Yeah, we're good. We're also going to have economy of scale here, in the sense that they're such a big operation, they can afford to buy the things that we can't afford right now, so that it really will mean the variety and the quality of the food will go up substantially. So hopefully, as it goes up, so will the participation. And I think that's what they're anticipating. So that, and I even got numbers on how much it would cost if we want to come in and have lunch. I think, what was it, $4.25?
$4.50.
$4.50. I'm sorry, it's $4.50 for us if we want to have lunch. Anyway,
but it will be less for the students, so their numbers are significantly less.
Yeah,
they're gonna make it up on us. But no, seriously, the fact that they can do this economy of scale thing allows them to control prices a lot better than we ever could, to be able to offer those choices. So it's really kind of a win-win, and it has no negative impact on the employees that we have. So this is a good thing. Outstanding. Okay, action items. First item, to consider and if appropriate, approve disposal of Region 12 property as presented. You all got a list. Here it is. And is someone going to say something about this?
Sure. We are a bunch of pack rats sometimes. And rather than looking like a bad episode of Hoarders, I'd really like to start clearing out things that are not in use. I think we've recognized the need to have space this year. We've recognized some of the opportunities that we've lost. Specifically, and we're going to talk about it in one of our next action items, the planetarium right now that has gone into storage rather than being able to be useful. And some of this comes with the fact that we need to get onto a rotation of asking the board's permission to dispose of purchases that we have made as a Board of Education. So what I'm going to be doing now moving forward is twice a year, presenting to you a list of items we would like to dispose of. And this is going to be the large list, because this is the first time that we're coming at it. but hopefully what we can start to do is really just keeping good housekeeping, and certainly also making certain that the board is aware of what is being sought for disposal. Some of these items are broken. That's within there. Some of them are just obsolete. We don't use projectors anymore. You're going to look down here and some of the printers are just not functioning, and we've kept them because of the fact that we did not know what to do or how to have permission to do it. So at this time, what I'm asking is the board's permission to approve the disposal list as presented.
So moved.
Second.
No, at this point, with the board's permission, I'm going to say we will donate what we can, and some may be in the dumpster, but if it is anything that we can either donate or find a way to give new use that may not be for us, much like we did with the Chromebooks and the smart boards, where it went to a school in need in an urban area. We would certainly look for those opportunities, but I'm going to say to you that some of these, if it is broken, we know that we've used some of this for spare parts disposal.
Okay. Just one request, Megan, if we could look at recycling on any of the items. I know there's a lot of problems with computers, particularly like leaching chemicals into landfill, and anything that we can do where we can be green, since we are an agri-science program. I'd love to, and maybe use it as a learning opportunity for the students too.
Happy to do that, and I think that is well advised. Thank you.
Consider, and if appropriate,
so I did provide in the board packet the digital planetarium that we are looking to purchase. In order for us to breathe life back into the planetarium, it is $108,000 for the package. But at this point, we do have the money set aside that we are able to make the purchase. However, it is a specialized item, which means that there's not a lot of planetarium equipment you can find out there. So I'm asking, we have a bidding threshold for the Board of Education at $35,000. And so I'm asking the board to waive that bidding threshold so we can move forward with purchasing and again, breathing life back into our planetarium. I believe, Mrs. Gallo, you enthusiastically endorsed this, correct?
how much was it again? 108. 108. 108. 108,000. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Further discussion. All I can say is thank goodness that this is happening. We have got a wonderful facility there that is unfortunately a bit outdated. This will bring it into the 21st century and is going to give us yet another thing to put into your brochure. Yes. Oh, with the mover, Mr. Hirschfield, agree to that amendment to 118? And the seconder? Well, whoever seconded it. Okay. Excellent. In that case, if there's no, John.
Is there an itemized list anywhere of what's going to occur with the renovation? Just an overview or general.
I can certainly get you the breakdown. This is the overview within the board packet of what the actual program does, but it is included in that is the cleanup of the old equipment. It includes the actual packaging of the presentation that will be able to be utilized. So this isn't just about the equipment, it's including the actual display that comes with it.
So this company comes and sets things up and works with the staff to better utilize it. Is that
The company will come in and overhaul the room. It is, hang on, a quick second. Hang on one moment. Can you?
The company is called Spitz Inc. SPITZ Inc.
Nicole, is it okay if I copy what you say so that way it makes the record? So the company is Spitz Inc.
Okay, Mike?
Just a question. Once we have this fantastic facility up and running, have you thought about the curriculum, how we're going to integrate the curriculum so that we can utilize it?
Yes, so obviously we're going to be working with our science department as far as what is appropriate, where it's going to come into place. But I also think this is also an opportunity to have community events. So I really think that some of this is extracurricular. And the hope is potentially we can get an astronomy club, get things going with our students. So I'm going to say to you, there's not a specific unit that requires this to be there, but I think it'd be an amazing enhancement and one that I think for other opportunities that are beyond the curriculum.
And even getting the elementary schools to do field trips up to Chippewa so that their students can take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to call first dibs on the board getting to see the thing in motion. I'd like to see a nice demonstration of it at a board meeting. Mary.
Also, there were when my son did Cub Scouts, they came up here and did a program in the planetarium, and they used the telescopes outside. And so the scouting groups, there's all sorts of other groups besides the schools that will be able to utilize the planetarium, and I think that'll be great. It'll be good to have it back.
Yes, it will. Outstanding. It'll be back better than it ever was. So this will be spectacular. I read that brochure and it was really amazing what this group is going to be able to do for us. Okay, is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
One nay vote. Is there anyone who abstains? In that case, it's not unanimous, but it is approved. Last action item, to consider and if appropriate, approve the transfer of $228,084 to the 1% non-recurring capital reserve fund. Is there a motion? Moved by Mary. Is there a second? Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion. I think we all know what this is. So if there's no discussion, no questions, I will ask all those in favor to please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, all those abstaining. It is unanimous. Done. Now we're going to have a motion. I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss non-certified, non-union staff increases for 2021 and 22. Moved. Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, all those abstaining. It is unanimous. We'll go into executive session now.
Superintendent.
I'm sorry, the superintendent.
That's it.
That's it. Okay.